I suspect that tonight it might be an ever so slightly quiet. Well, because right now Glasgow is filling up with barflies. Regardless, I'm still here and I'm looking forward to hanging out with you again, and I'll see you in a second. Hello, Whisky folk. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the vPub. Welcome to another Thursday night. Hope you're all comfortable and hope you're doing well. As I mentioned, it's not going to be the topic tonight. I'm not going to talk about all the things that's happening in Glasgow this weekend because I know for so many of you, the idea of getting to Glasgow is pretty unlikely. But it's a busy weekend here. The Whisky Festival is on Saturday, but we've got a weekend of events. There's a hosted tasting in the Piper Bar in George Square tomorrow. Then, of course, we've got the festival itself on Saturday, and we're gathering to eat together afterwards, heading on to the Bonaccord after that. And then on Sunday, I host the Aquavite Blind Challenge live. And I just can't wait. I'm looking forward to all of it. I'm looking forward to welcoming the folk that are here in Glasgow, and the people that are going to be here for the first time, and the people that are returning, some folk for maybe a dozen or more times. Plus, there's a lot of local folk there as well. I'm really excited about it. But that's all we need to say about that. What it's meant for me is that, as I explained to you last week when we started this concept of a wee bit of a lazier vPub, what it's meant for me is that it's been really intense times recently. And, despite the fact I did manage to get a holiday, and I was very, very thankful for it too, we just ran into the Online Scotch Whisky Awards. And then as soon as we get the Online Scotch Whisky Awards finished and done and dusted on Saturday, despite a couple of wee mistakes and glitches, but nothing that really distracted from anything at all. It wouldn't be the Oswis without a wee mistake, right? As soon as that was done, then I just threw everything into making sure that all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted for the events that's happening over the weekend, in the hope that they run nice and smoothly and everyone has fun. So it means that these two vPubs were originally going to be quite kind of laid back, lazy affairs. And I think that's still going to be the case tonight. But as I was building up to this session tonight, I realized that it's actually quite a lofty topic, isn't it? And for enthusiasts, we're liable to, some of us, me included, get a wee bit ranty about these things, a wee bit annoyed, a wee bit frustrated. And I kind of want to, rather than just kind of start with that, I kind of want to go through the reasons, go through my take on natural whiskey, where I think it should be, where I think it could be, all of those things. And what I've done is I've put up a poll right at the start of tonight. So if you're tuning in live, thank you for participating live. I really do appreciate it. But for those of you picking up in the replay, I'll share with you what the poll results are. And I'll share with you right at the start of things the answers to the 4 questions I've put in there about natural whiskey in general. And I think throughout tonight, I'm going to ask a much more specific question about colouring, a much more specific question about filtering. And then as we talk through the bottles and things, the examples I've got for you of producers that have started to move in a more natural direction. So I'm going to try and keep things very positive tonight and celebrate those producers that seem to be changing. I think it's interesting. I think there's a lot of producers out there that tend not to offer natural products for whatever reason. But recently, we've started to see more natural products coming from them. There's a lot of producers out there. The vast majority of the stuff that we speak about in the vPub week to week, the vast majority of the stuff that you're celebrating and shouting about is fully natural. A lot of producers out there don't do anything other than fully natural products. Just to be clear at the outset, when I'm talking about fully natural products, I'm talking about consider the ABCDs, the video I did in 2017. A for age statement, B for bottling strength, C for chill filtration, and D for dye colouring added. The ones we're going to focus on tonight is less to do with the AB. We're not really interested in age statement tonight. We're not interested in bottling strength. It's implicit in our discussion tonight. C for chill filtration and D for dye colouring is the focus tonight. There's a lot of producers out there that just still only put out chill filtered and non-natural colour. That means they're adding colour, or at least they reserve the right to add colour. They don't put a statement on the bottle to suggest that it's naturally coloured. And that is by far, by volume, by brand count, it's by far the most common whisky that's out there. When I'm speaking about, in the context of the entire night tonight, I'm going to be speaking about Scotch whisky, and specifically Scotch malt whisky. Anyway, once I've welcomed all of you guys in tonight, what we're going to do is go through things in some kind of soft chronological order and just focus on the positive steps that some producers have taken to bring us a more natural product. And I'll try and keep it positive, and I'll try to not be too ranty about these things that I can be quite passionate about. Anyway, before we get into all of that, let me hop into the lounge and welcome some of you beautiful whisky folk and dedicated barflies. I suspect the majority of you that have not made it to Glasgow in 2024. If you are in Glasgow and you're tuning in, why are you not out the Bonaccord? Why are you not out the Potstill? Why are you not out the Piper Bar? Why are you not out the SMWS in Bath Street? Maybe you're just preserving yourself for a busy few whisky days ahead. Anyway, let's see how you're all doing. I'm looking for the oranges, I always do. So if you're trying to get a hold of me, type Aquavite or at Aquavite, and I should be able to find you. Like Julian Rickman's done there. He's saying, evening, Roy, evening, barflies. Wishing all the barflies safe travels. Major Nut is here saying it would be a short one for me today, catching the rest on replay. You all have a good weekend. You hear, enjoy. Major Nut, I hope you're picking this up on the replay now. Hope you're comfortable again and enjoying yourself. Julian, thank you. Thank you, Major Nut. Highland Hamish is here. He's saying Aquavite, greetings from Inverness. You're coming down this weekend. There he's telling us, heading down the A9 sharp tomorrow AM, picking up Wook at Broxton Services at 10 AM. that would be cool. That would really be something, Hamish, if you were picking up Wook. Bruno Martins is saying, good evening, Roy. Good to have you in, Bruno. All the way from Lisbon. Fantastic to have you. Just as it jumps, Bruno, I hope you didn't say anything else there. Max Kreitner is saying, good evening, my friend. Already 9 drams in after a tasting, but still want to hear more about whiskey from you. Max, that's wonderful. Thank you so much. I hope that you're in a warm, fuzzy place and you've had a really good night. I saw some images that you were sharing earlier that looked like a good one, buddy. All the best to you and Christina. Ginger Genius, good to see you, Johnny. Saying evening, Roy, and everyone. Nice to welcome you, buddy. Looking forward to seeing you back in Glasgow again this weekend. And Ian Bruce is saying, it was great to watch the Oswas projected onto a big screen Aquavite. It makes me laugh when we hear a distiller speak about terroir of water, then add colouring. Yeah. Terroir, water, let's go with provenance. A lot of producers, I think it's less common these days for people to bang on about water. I think they talk about water source and the quality of water and things like that, but I've started to hear people be less vocal, let's say, about a potential flavour impact from their water source. Yeah, I think there's a lot of work being done there to kind of debunk just how much that's happening. Okay, that it does have an effect. You know, really hard water, lots of mineral content, really soft water, all of these things. But we're at the end of the day, we're speaking about a distilled product. Craig Dollar is here. Good to see you, buddy. Hello, Aquavite. Hello, folks. Getting excited for the weekend. Me too. Buddy, I think you're joining us for all 3 events this weekend. Look after me, won't you? And I'll try and do the same right back at you. Circumbendibus. That's been a long, long, long time since I've seen that name, but I'm very familiar with it. I'm pretty sure that you used to come around these parts quite a while back. Circumbendibus is saying, Aquavite, will you be speaking about the new Scapa range available now in France? A 10 and 16-year-old now at 48% ABV. It's not available here in the UK. Circumbendibus. It was launched in Norway, I think. Now it's out in France. I don't know why they're doing this staggered launch. But yes, I've seen some prices coming out for a UK launch as well. It's a wee bit pricier than what I'd first anticipated. But despite the fact that I can't get it here, thanks to one of the barflies, Rolfie, I do have some Scapa on hand, and we will be talking about it. David Lorenko, good to see you, buddy. Also in Portugal, saying, I do care about natural whiskey unless it's bloody good. Pardon possible paradox. Listen, we're going to have to just cover all of these things, David. Absolutely. Jean Kelly saying, greetings, Aquavit and fellow barflies. So looking forward to meeting everyone in Glasgow tomorrow through Sunday at the Whisky Festival and related events. Cheers, Gina. Can't wait. First time for you and I to have met as well. Dram has come in. Joe Shepherd has joined the barflies. Thank you very much, Joe. Thank you for supporting and keeping the vPubs and all the Aquaviti content completely ad-free. That's what joining as a YouTube member does. And in return, you get your real loyalty barfly badges, all your channel-themed emoji and things like that. But I think the biggest benefit is obviously the support for me. Thank you so much. But keeping it ad-free. I don't need to go cap in hand to YouTube and litter the content with ads. Still watching the Europa League at the pub. I'm going to have to catch the replay, says Jerry Miller. That's fine. It's Thursday night. There's lots of football on tonight. My son and I were watching some football in the background a wee bit earlier, Jerry. I hope you're enjoying it, buddy, and I hope you're enjoying it now that you're picking this up on the replay. Welcome, Jerry Miller. And Hellswood is celebrating being a member of the Barflies for 55 months and saying, wish you all a great whiskey time at Glasgow Whisky Festival. Not jealous. You're not jealous, Helen. You've been up here a few times before. But thank you, Jerry Miller, Joe, and Helen. Cheers. Hope Andy's doing well too, Helen. Make a Dram decision is saying, hello, Barflies. I wish I was in Glasgow, but alas, I am not. I suspect you speak for a few people this weekend, which is why I'm going to try and keep the discussion about this weekend to a minimum. And Jimmy Legg is here saying, I'm missing you, cool kids. Sure hope you have a great time, Aquaviti. Missing you too, big guy. But it's wonderful that we're able to welcome you in here. Just popping in, Drew from Arizona. Drew, good to see you. I hope you're keeping well. Aquaviti, and very good to see you, my friend. Thinking about you all this week. I know, Drew, you've been over for the Glasgow Festival weekend. I know it's a pretty intense thing. You've experienced it firsthand. And we don't seem to learn because we're doing even more this 2024 festival season. It's going to be pretty crazy. Justin Wan is saying, good evening, Aquaviti. Just completed a hop to London to meet up with my brother. Let me see where I end up later tonight. Justin is incoming. He's one of the barflies descending on Glasgow as we speak. Tobias is here. Good evening, Aquaviti. Very excited for the weekend. Flight in just a few hours, so no quiz for me. Somebody else heading this way. Just to put some scale on it, the tasting tomorrow is looking like it's going to be 70 people. I'm just trying to squeeze everyone in, do as much as I can to accommodate everyone. It's very difficult. These things are oversubscribed, and there are people out there on the reserve list that just wouldn't have got in. I've been doing it in chronological, or let's say the order that you put your name forward. If you've heard from me, you're in. If you haven't heard from me, it's probably a wee bit too late now, and I apologise. What it does mean is that I am committed to try and find new ways of continuing this and doing more of it in the future, because it's clear the feedback from you, there's an appetite for it. So 70 people tomorrow at the Piper Bar in George Square. There's 100 of us leaving the festival, just over 100 of us leaving the festival in 2 coaches to head into town to eat together. And then after that, we'll wander around to the Bonaccord. And then there's 60 people participating in the Aquaviti Blind Challenge on Sunday as well. So I think the trick is going to be to pace things out a wee bit. There I go, talking about it again. Gary Carew is saying, hi there. Good to see you, Gary. I hope you're keeping well. Enjoying your Loch Lomond 14-year-old tonight. The level remaining getting ever lower, unfortunately. It's the same for mine. I had, obviously, backups. But my brother and I had good reason to crack open one of those backups at the weekend. My brother was up at the weekend, and we absolutely loved it. It was fantastic. We were really, really just swimming in it. Doodle the Dram, good to see Arnie. Aquaviti, that's right. Lay back and cam your beans. Colour added takes a lot of magic from a dram, but with so much choice of integrity bottles today, there's no need for us to be too snooty. I get you, Arnie. I get you. but I have a slightly different take on it. Whisky Liberation Front, that's Lee J. Also heading to Glasgow. He's saying, feeling very lucky to be attending all three this weekend. Thank you again. Well, thank me after the events, Lee J, and let me know how they've gone down, and we'll always try and make them a wee bit more fun. Brian Cabayas is saying, good morning. I'm glad I'm joining live today. COVID is still around. I'll taste the whiskies through your enjoyment. Cheers. Brian, I'm so sorry to hear that, and I hope you rally back and recover quite quickly. There's far too much of that around right now. Ian Bruce is saying, Tasmanian distiller Overeem do a flock series in conjunction with the Whisky List to celebrate the Scotch mist, as Ralphie would say. It's a wee bit like a Signatory Vintage who do the, what is it they call it now? Do they call it, they just call it cloudy or something, don't they? I can't remember what they call that, when they have the kind of blurred, difficult to read font on the label. Owen Ashford, good to see you on. He's saying natural matters, especially in Wales. Oh, wow. So you are, you're down in Wales. You could be located in Wales. But I wonder if you're referring to whiskey or the distilleries there. Greg's Whisky Guide, he's in Paris. He's saying, hi Aquaviti and everyone from Paris after a nice Morrison tasting yesterday, a fine pre-birthday event. It's not tonight, but Sunday, mind you. Oh, Greg, I'm going to raise a wee glass. I'm going to take the opportunity to say to my pal in Paris, many happy returns, my friend. Happy birthday when it swings round, and I hope you have a fantastic one. Cheers. A great wee excuse for me to have a sip of a tasty, despite being 43% whiskey. I bet you can guess what it is. Graham Fraser is saying, hi Frank. Are you at the Aquaviti tasting tomorrow afternoon? Graham Fraser is joining us too. Looking forward to it, buddy. And Klitz is saying, very cloudy is the name. Very cloudy is the name for the 40% ABV Signatory releases. If I recall correctly, says Klitz. I think you might be right. And Michael Wood is here. Good to see you, Michael. For the Southerners, we need a whiskey festival too. Is there one in London or even Birmingham? There are a bunch of whiskey festivals. The Birmingham Whiskey Festival I've not been to yet. Neither have I been to the London Whiskey Festival, actually, or the Whiskey Show Live. I do intend to travel to both. Maybe I'll get to bump into you there, Michael. There's whiskey festivals everywhere, all over the place. Sugar Kitty saying, difficult font to read. I just call that over 60. I'm a lot younger than that. Not really, but I do get exactly what you mean. And it doesn't get any easier as time ticks by. Okay, let's get into things. I did a video back in 2017, as I mentioned, and I called it the ABCDs of whiskey. I thought that was quite clever. But, you know, I don't know how well it aged. I think it's still valid. All the discussions that we have, everything that I said in that video is still pretty valid. But things have moved on. We've had a lot of craft, new distilleries, a lot of things coming along and challenging us about flavour and about flavour versus age and things like that. So we back off a little bit on the age statement thing now, because we can taste the quality that's coming from these producers, even at a young age, or even when they bring us a product that isn't necessarily age stated. We have to do a bit of digging or whatever to find out what the age of the liquid is. So we've relaxed a wee bit about age. So the A part of the A, B, C, D, we can kind of leave to the side, I think, for most of the discussion tonight. The B for bottling strength, we can get that out of the way quite quickly. It's implicit in the other things that I'm going to be discussing, and that is that if you look at a bottle, if you pick it up and it says 46% ABV or higher, there's a chance that that bottle is pointed towards enthusiasts. That means that with that higher ABV, there's a chance that they will choose to either not chill filter that whiskey for a reason that's going to become clear, or they may choose to chill filter it in a way that's much milder. That is, they're not going to drop the temperature of the liquid down quite as much. What that means is they take out a little less of those oils and fats, the oils and fats that clump together at low temperatures. And that way, when they force it through under pressure, through these membranes, through these filters, all of those oils and fats get trapped. Those are the things that cause whiskey to go cloudy when the liquid is cold or when it's poured over ice at lower ABVs. This only really happens with malt whiskey. It's far less of an issue with things that have gone through a continuous distillation process and produced from the likes of wheat. It's really something that affects malt whiskey distilled in a batch process from 100% malted barley. And that's tends to be what most of the discussion and the conversation is about. So while you do see the occasional blend that says natural colour and unchill filtered, it kind of affects that a bit less. Unless it's a very high malt content blend, these things become important. Finally, the D, dye, is colouring. The only colouring that's permitted to be added to Scotch whisky is E150, the A version, E150A, which is a supposedly natural spirit caramel. However, it's produced in a very industrial and chemical way. It's horrible stuff. You know, the little bottle that I have sitting over my shoulder most of the time. This has been sitting, I've not even picked this up. I'm just ad hoc reaching for this now. I've got some white paper that I can hold behind this. So you can see that that liquid is sitting on its side there. But if I was to turn it up vertically, it's not going to move in a hurry. It's really, really, really super viscous, super thick liquid. And you can see the level here. Now that's about a month, 6 weeks, 2 months ago, it was sitting upright and it stains the glass. And in fact, this glass is not amber glass. This is a clear glass bottle, but such as it's been stained so much. This is horrible stuff. I had some in a cocktail stick years ago, and just out of pure curiosity, I tasted it from the cocktail stick. Not only did I have an orange yellow nicotine-like stain on my tongue for ages, it tasted like burnt plastic. It was horrible. It was acrid. It was not pleasant stuff. When you sip whiskies that have been heavily tainted by spirit caramel colouring, you can taste something that is unpleasant if it's heavily coloured and if it's abused. But what you tend to notice about something that's been heavily coloured is a flattening, a softening. It's just the whiskey's been rendered much more linear, less vibrant, less complex, maybe arguably softer and smoother, but just much more simple. It's an emulsifying effect that the caramel colouring has when it's been heavily used. It's horrible stuff. We'll get onto this. We'll go on to talking about this a wee bit later. But I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to leave this bottle sitting upright now in front of us. And if you remind me a wee bit later, we can pick it up and see how much it's actually budged. No spirit caramel colouring in this, I'm glad to say. Whisky Central is saying the ABC video was how I found your channel, so I'm very glad it exists. Good to see you, Sheila. Sheila is in Glasgow for this weekend. There I go, talking about it again. It's nice to welcome you, Sheila. I hope you're comfortable. Why are you in here and not in the pub? Greg's Whisky Guide is saying, one thing I'd say is still underexposed. I talked about it a while ago, is that natural presentation doesn't stop filtering and caramel. For me, it should also include wood technology. Yeah, that's a whole other, what they do with the wood, how they treat the wood, how the wood is received to them. All of it is that's a whole other can of worms. I think for the sake of keeping it a lazy vPub tonight, keeping it a simple and focused vPub, we're going to focus on the C and D element, the chill filtration and the colouring. Aquaviti, ever had a whiskey so bad it became a drain pour? That's Exovry. That's a tricky name to pronounce. I bet it's dead easy to pronounce, but I would have to hear it first. Exovry, let's go with that. I've had whiskies so bad that they could be easily drain pour fodder, but I have never done that yet. I've never had anything so bad that it's gone down the drain. I've never had a Loch Dew, for example. Certainly I've not had a full bottle of Loch Dew or Ben Dew or Black Loch or any of those really heavily coloured whiskies, if that's what you're leaning towards. No, what I've got here in the vPub is just shelves and shelves and shelves of a library now, reference points and things like that, that even if it's a bad whiskey, I tend to keep it on the shelf, maybe in the naive hope that it might change. They do sometimes. Or that it's something I can go back to or let other people try so they understand my take on it. And Owen Ashford is saying nearly 300 folk in and less than 100 likes. Owen, thank you very much. It's nice when people hit the like button, but I forget to do it myself. So it's nice to be reminded. I like being reminded, and I click the like button, but only do it if you feel like it's legitimate content. Dave and BV. BV, I wonder what that's for. Could it be Bavaria, Dave? But no, it's BV in the States. It's US dollars. But anyway, he's bought me a wee dram and a sticker. Dave, thank you very much for your generosity. And thanks to Owen Ashford too. Cheers to you both. I'm going to put another wee drop in this. I'm enjoying it tonight. Some good wee whiskey. And Jimmy's saying no one has ever had a whiskey that someone they know wouldn't drink. It just depends on the company that you keep, perhaps, or the people that you know. Absolutely, Jimmy. Right on, nail on the head. A lot of you would have guessed that I am sipping Benromach. Specifically, this is Benromach's 10-year-old. This has been on the market for a long time now. Probably the longest core range Benromach that we've come to know and love. It is 43% ABV. Immediately, what we can take from that, because it's a single malt whiskey, is that Benromach have absolutely put this through a filter. They have absolutely chilled it before it's went through that filter as well, but how much, we don't know. So this could be a soft chill filtration, it could be an aggressive chill filtration, we don't know. But if they're going to market it and sell it at 43% ABV, that's chill filtered. Because if they don't at that lower ABV, what will happen, even before it gets out the bottle, even before it's poured over ice or cold water is added, even in storage, even on the shelf, even in transportation, the whiskey is at risk of clouding, of those fats and oils making themselves very, very present and obvious in the liquid. And people look at that and see it as a fault. They see it as something that's not appealing, so they don't want to buy it. If you keep the whiskey above, and I'm not sure what it is, but all other things being equal, it's something like 45.7% ABV. If it's above that, the alcohol holds those fats and oils in solution much better, and the whiskey, even at cold temperatures, stays pretty clear. Not always, not all the time. Even in cask strength whiskies and higher ABV whiskies, you can get flocculation, you can get things happening in the liquid, but we know it's a natural thing. If you want to avoid that happening, you put it through this aggressive filtering process. So that's definitely happening here. But despite that, this was an OSWA nominee this year. People love this stuff. I would suggest to you that the majority of far more than 90% of all the nominations in the OSWAs tend to be natural products. I am not going to go as far to say that Benromach 10 is not natural. Why? Well, because they give us this wonderful statement on the side that I hope the camera can focus on. There you go. Natural colour. Do you see that there? This is wonderful for me to see. So reassuring. Despite the fact this is 43% in chill filtered whiskey, this is good value, drinking whiskey, flavour forward. They talk a lot about natural. They talk a lot about it being handmade. And they go as far to make sure they don't put caramel colouring in it. And they put that statement, natural colour, on the label. Some other people choose to say no added colour or whatever it may be. And that's the colour that we have. This is a gorgeous, rich, amber colour. There's even some nice dark russet red highlights in this whiskey. This is a good colour, taking all of its colour from the cask. And the majority of the cask here is American oak, first fill bourbon. There'll be some refill in there. There'll be some sherry cask in here in the marriage and the makeup, sure. But generally speaking, most of the colour in this whiskey would have come from pretty good quality bourbon casks. This is the colour of Scotch whiskey. Throughout tonight, you're going to hear me hopefully say that statement a lot. What's happened recently, though, and Benromach were the first to do it, is that they've started to move a little more towards fully natural. So while I'm not going to suggest this is not natural, the only process that's happened here is for them to take some fats out of it. They haven't added anything that isn't in there before, such as colouring. So this is still natural whiskey, but it's been treated, it's been polished a little bit. But they've started to put other products out there that I find are quite interesting. Circumbendibus is saying, I heard Signature Vintage are going 46% only. That was an exclusive that they released on the Online Scotch Whisky Awards 2 years ago. They just up and said, we're just going to do everything natural. So it will take a while for all of the products to be released under that new policy. There's going to be a lot of legacy stock and things still kicking around, and maybe in their own stocks, but certainly out there in the wider marketplace and the supply chain and things. But yeah, I believe it to be true. I'll miss their 40% and 43% ranges as it's perfect for me. And I think they should cater for all tastes. Well, this is interesting. I suspect that why the 40% and 43% ranges are perfect for you is because of the low ABV. Would I be correct? And Klitz is saying, I really like Benromach 10, but I do feel the finish to be its weakness. I've actually added a dollop of Benromach casks. Klitz, you're reading my mind here. It's incredible stuff. Let's pour a wee bit more in the glass. I forgot to do that when I picked up the bottle. Circumbendibus, I like your comment. It's a really good one. Klitz, I like that even better. Yeah, it's like I'm becoming a wee bit too predictable, right? But terrific idea. And finally, Dennis, I just don't know why distillers spend good money on good oak casks to imbue great flavours into their spirit and then filter it out. Unless they don't. That's the thing, finally done. Unless some of them don't. And it's not because they buy cheap casks. It's just that they overuse some casks, or they realise that some casks are not going to be fit for purpose to do what they want to do to release it as a single malt. Unpeated Benromach contrasts has me intrigued, says Alistair Gray. Unpeated Benromach contrasts. So specifically, most Benromach has a little bit of peat in it. So the contrast series is what we're going to jump onto, Alistair. Gav O'Connor is saying, what are your thoughts on companies such as Speyburn, who are going the other way and dropping their products to 40% and presumably filtering? The whole reason for me really stepping up and wanting to get on the soapbox a little bit tonight and talk about this and how important this is, because I have spent years investing in Speyburn, loving it, loving it, loving it. It's from a fantastic company, and their house have, generally speaking, they've made a few bizarre decisions and done weird things with ranges that have been loved, and I'm speaking about an enthusiast perspective in all of this, and Pulteney and Bulblair and places like that. But generally speaking, look at Anok, look at, I felt like they were a company that was already pretty solidly on a good path. So to hear that Speyburn is suddenly going to be stripped and put out at 40% as well, it's too much to say is it too much to say that it causes a bit of rage? It causes genuine upset in me. Really, it's clumsy, it's awful. It's after the amount of people that have realised in recent years the quality of the Speyburn product. They had entry-level stuff. What is their non-age statement? Braden Orak or something? Their 10-year-old is at 40% ABV. That's covered. 15-year-old was beautiful whiskey. 18-year-old sublime for the price as well. All fully natural products. For them to suddenly change and put that at 40% ABV, they're just going after a different market. It's been a bit of a waste of time, I think. My ticket secured for the Independent Bottlers Festival in Leith next year. Good for you, Nick. I look forward to seeing you there. He's saying exhibit list is outstanding. So big thanks to all those working hard to bring this together. I'm actually a little bit delinquent. I need to update the exhibitor lists for that event. 15th of March next year, Leith Theatre in Leith. A festival purely to celebrate independent bottlers and also to screen independent bottlers, independent spirits, a Water of Life film. 4-part docu-series. Jimmy Legacy saying there are still tickets available at independentspirits.co.uk, by the way. Jimmy Legacy saying there are always one main reason why any company does anything. They believe there's more money in it. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. A lot of the time it's short-term money that they're going after. It really is. Anyway, as Klitz was mentioning there, just on the back of Circumbendibus talking about lower ABV, this is 43% ABV. So in this Benromach, he's got a naturally coloured 43% low ABV whiskey that he can enjoy, and he doesn't have to fight with that barrier of alcohol. Let's be honest, as enthusiasts, we know that we can take our wee water dropper and we can put a wee bit of scoosh of water in our whiskey to waken it up with a few drops to see how the water kind of causes that lovely chemical reaction, brightens the whiskey or adds the spice, adds the fruit, whatever it may do. It changes every time, just to wake up things a little bit. But we also add more water than that to reduce the ABV, to reduce the strength, to dilute things, to take that heat down a bit. This is 43% ABV, and I've just put a couple of scooshes in. Maybe a wee bit too much water in that one for me. Still lovely, still lots of flavour there. I'd say that the kind of ripe fruits and the kind of orangey citrus notes have been amplified a wee bit. Certainly I'm noticing them more, and that might be because the spice has been brought down a wee bit. But as Klitz mentioned, what we can often do is take this. This is batch 3 of the 2012 vintage cask strength Benromach. This is fantastic stuff, fantastic value. Also an Oswa nominee this year, 59.6%, incidentally, this batch. And this says on the side label that this is also natural colour. No colour is added. And I can pop a wee bit of cask strength Benromach in there and see what happens here, just to give it a bit of oomph and vibrance and body and heft. I've got a bit of power and fat back to things. And here on the side, you can also see a statement on the cask strength, natural colour and non-chill filtered. Look at the transparency here as well. But distilled 2012, bottled 2022. So we can assume this is either a 9 or a 10-year-old product. When it's a vintage, all the cask makeup is from that year. Whereas if it's an age statement, they can put older things in there, and only the age statement refers to the youngest component. It's actually gone quite a wee bit darker in the glass. I don't know if you can notice that. Let's see. There you go. Look at the colour difference here. That Benromach cask strength, that 2012 batch 3, is quite a bit darker than the 10-year-old. It's just an incidental observation. It doesn't really mean anything. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be better or more flavourful or anything like that. But it's just interesting, and it's nice to talk about the colour of a whiskey. It's nice to note it and celebrate it and use it as part of the ceremony, the pleasure, the analysis, the comparison, whatever you want to do, as long as we know that it's natural. Because if it's not natural, if it's had this stuff added to specification, it renders discussion about the colour of the whiskey absolutely redundant. It's fakery. There I go on my soapbox. Anyway, let's see what this cask strength has done. It's just wonderful nutty hazelnut pop there. Fantastic. Roasted hazelnut even. I really struggle to find any smoke or peat on Benromach, but perhaps that kind of roasted lick there is maybe from the fact that it's ever so slightly peated. Usually if the glass is empty, there's nothing else. It's just just the glass is sitting empty. Maybe cover it for a while, take it off. You sometimes get a pop of smoke that way, or I do. Remarkably soft. 59.6% ABV has been added into the 43% ABV, but the package still comes together for me where my preferences are at. That's still utterly drinkable and really quite soft and delicious. So much more citrus here, so much more kind of dark orange. There's a genuine nuttiness on the palate too. And that kind of dark, kind of almost verging on extreme agricultural workshed type creosote almost note that Benromach can have sometimes. It's almost like that kind of oily rag element, a slight kind of suggestion of an outdoor industrial work shed type thing. And it even noses like that too. It's quite farmy even. But what I've done here is I've basically made my own blend. I've mixed a 10-year-old and a cask strength together, but this is still absolutely a 100% single malt whiskey that's in the glass. Everything is from Benromach, and it's all malted barley. I might have reduced the age by a little bit, maybe 9 years, if that cask strength is a 9-year-old. My point here is that if we're really in a huff about the 43% of Benromach's 10-year-old, then maybe if we've got a bottle of cask strength on hand, we can add a wee bit to it. I would say that I need 2 bottles to do that. If this was at 46%, people like Circumbendibus, who needs it a wee bit softer, could take a teaspoon of water and reduce the strength a bit. I don't think, and I may be naive here, that there are loads and loads and loads of people out there buying Benromach right now because it's at 43%. I don't think there are lots of people buying Benromach 10-year-old right now that are not whiskey enthusiasts, that don't know a wee bit about whiskey, that don't love whiskey in some way. I think that people are buying Benromach whiskey despite the fact it's at 43% right now. We love it because it's good value, and we forgive the fact that it's at 43%. I suspect that it would be up to the task of Arran, of, dare I say, a Springbank, of so many other celebrated producers right now if it moved to 46% and fully natural. And I suggest to you that it would not lose too much of its customer base that's enjoying it at 43. Because I have never sat with anyone who's happier sipping 40 to 43% whiskies that you then pour them a 46% whiskey and they say it's too hot, I can't drink it. It's never happened. They may say it's too hot if it's the first one that you pour. Maybe it needs a wee bit of water. But ABV is one of these things that your brain is very, very good at accommodating. I put it to you, and this happens in the blind challenges regularly, that if you're given a 46% ABV whiskey and a 43% ABV whiskey of a very similar style, you cannot be confident that you pick out which is the higher ABV. The one that you will elect as being the higher ABV will be the one that naturally noses and sips slightly hotter, slightly spicier, maybe slightly richer, and you'll pick that as being the higher ABV. It'll be down to the profile and the way the whiskey presents rather than the technical specs behind it. The reason that whiskey companies put malt whiskey out at 40 and 43% ABV is because they can, because it's still malt whiskey, and because it goes further. It's a business thing. They will tell you that their customers prefer it at 40 and 43%, and there are people out there, Circumbendibus, the guy who's in tonight, I'm suggesting it's a guy, apologies, who say that. But I would sit with Circumbendibus for 10 minutes, half an hour, whatever it is, and we would share a bunch of blind whiskies, and at some point I would suggest, tell me which are 40 and 43% and which are 46. Why does it matter? Because if they're 40 and 43%, they are very unlikely to be intact. They are very unlikely to be fully natural. I need to digress a bit, talk about natural cask strength. Why am I getting notifications through? Brian Cabayas has bought me a dram. Brian, thank you so much. Positive use of chill filtration to some Aussie whiskies is to strip off over-oaked, tannin-filled, rapidly aged product. Water dilution alone is not enough, usually 4 degrees C, but not sub-zero temperatures. and no E150. I don't think that's happening in Scotch whisky right now, Brian, at all. I don't believe that that is happening for that reason. But I can understand, especially in Australian whiskies, you're talking about tannins and over-oaking and things like that, where you're using pretty fresh, pretty active wine casks for the maturation, that it might be an animal you need to tackle. Peter Lee is here as well, also buying me a dram. Good to see you, buddy. He's saying, good evening, Roy. Can we raise a dram to Ryan Sutherland for the birth of a baby boy? I can't wait to meet all the barflies at Glasgow Whisky Festival. Fantastic, Peter. So I'm making a note of that. Ryan Sutherland's just had a baby boy. Let's raise a wee glass to our pal Ryan, who won't be in tonight, I suggest, for the best kind of news. Thanks, Peter, for the dram, and thanks for the heads up. Congratulations, Ryan. I hope you, baby, mummy, and the whole family are doing well. Cheers. I suspect I might not see Ryan at Glasgow Whisky Festival this weekend. And Whisky Novice Jim, who I will see at Glasgow this weekend, going to sign off and have a relatively early night. Can't wait to see so many of you at the weekend. Here's to your good health. Here's to yours as well, Jim. Thank you so much for your dram, buddy. Can't wait to see you in Glasgow. Terrific stuff. Thank you all for raising a wee glass to Ryan. So let's put the Benromach to the side for a second, because I've got quite a few things to get through. Benromach was one of the first of these kind of 43% producers out there, because the 15-year-old, the 21-year-old core range from Benromach is presented at 43% as well, and that's where it really is heart-wrenching. 21-year-old malt whiskey with that wonderful flavour conduit of the fats and oils and the texture and the mouthfeel stripped out of that whiskey so that it can be presented at 43%. And Benromach are a very small scale producer. However, what they did start to do is they gave us, as what's already been mentioned in the chat, they gave us the contrast series. Now I've got a shelf full of this stuff over there. I've got the Cara Gold, I've got the peat smoke, I've got the sherry cask peat smoke, I've got the organic, and these two here are completely geek forward enthusiast type things. Look at this. We've got an air dried over on this side and a kiln dried oak. It's nothing to do with what we're going to discuss tonight. It's two different ways of preparing the oak that's going to be coopered into a cask. It has to be dried, of course. So they can either leave it out in the air, which is a much more kind of traditional, natural way. So air-dried oak versus an accelerated way to actually put the oak staves, before the staves, put the oak into a kiln and dry it through a kiln process. Excuse me. Benromach wanted to show us the difference, or at least let us consider what the difference could be. One of the things that I tend to say on the vPub quite regularly is that the level tends to betray how much you're enjoying something. Now, this one's been hidden amongst a lot of other Benromach contrasts out there, so these two haven't had a lot of airtime, either on the vPub or behind the scenes at the vPub. But you can see the levels here. This one's only had a couple of drams out of it, and this one's I've gone back to more. This is the air-dried one. And in my memory, I was enjoying the air-dried one a wee bit more. I'm going to be tempted to say that exact same thing tonight, am I not? I don't have any coloured dots around for me to do it blind. But let's pour a wee bit of both of these. And see if that's still the case now that they've been open for a wee while. I think what's interesting about these contrast series is that all of them, without exception, have been fully natural whiskies. 46% ABV, looking for the age statement on it. Yes, sorry, not the age statement. I'm looking for the details on it. It says non-chill filtered on the side. This is both of these are, of course, virgin oak casks. No statement about colour now that I look at it. Maybe if I spent a bit more time, I'd find it in the small print. But non-chill filtered is clearly written on both labels here. You can see it there. And that's because they've got that extra ABV there, so they're not nervous about what's going to happen, about it clouding. We used to be nervous about virgin oak with Scotch whisky. Not these days. We've become much more clever about not just... The worry was that it would be put in virgin oak and left forever, you know, and it would just ruin it. Oh, this just... It's about appropriate use of these casks. How long they can stay in virgin oak before things start to go a wee bit too far. But this is the kiln dried one, and it's got lovely, lovely, rich, spiced, burnt caramelized toffee caramel type nose, and lots of orchard and candied citrus. So Benromach. There's a really, really unique, difficult to articulate. It's that industrial thing again that I said creosote earlier. It's not the right word, but hopefully you can get where I'm coming from. This is softer immediately. The fruit here is lighter. Not tropical fruit, not white fruit. But it's a wee bit, it's like a sweeter orange and a sweeter apple. Maybe a wee bit quieter even. Let's go in for a wee sip. I'm tempted to sip this one first. It's softer. Oh wow, I've forgotten how good a wee whiskey that is. 46% ABV, but still very, very approachable. Then the development, you get a big hit of spice, but it's cooking spices. It's just gingers and nutmegs and cinnamons. Lots of wood, spice, and backed up by just waves of kind of really quite dense apple and citrus, orchard and citrus. All the while within this kind of... Funk's not the right word either. If you know Benromach, you know what I'm trying to articulate. Kiln dried. I've just been drawn right into cinnamon territory, to much more kind of bourbon flavors. It makes sense that you would pick that up from virgin oak, of course. Cinnamon, candies, caramel, butterscotch, but kind of red fruit, cherry. I could put this in front of some people and convince them that there's bourbon in this. So much more oak flavors, much more... bit of dry tea, bit of black tea, builder's tea kind of thing going on there too. Still super fruity. I suspect I'm going to start to approach this, the one that I haven't been touching much, a wee bit more. It's quite a compelling thing to happen there. So what we see from Benromach is, with Contrast series, is a kind of a way for them to be a wee bit playful. And if they're going to be playful and experiment with things, Caragold, different barley strain, organic, completely different product altogether. That means organic wood, organic grain, everything, organic process. And then we're going to have the sherry cask, and then they have the peated sherry cask, and then they just have the peated, and all of these things through the Contrast series. It gives them this fantastic range of whiskies to be playful and experimental with, and point it towards people like us, which means that we're going to demand 46% ABV natural whiskey. So they do know, they are interested in this thing. They are interested in doing it. Perhaps not for their core range, but that's another reason that we give Benromach a let-off. It's another reason that we like their 10-year-old and their 15-year-old and their 21-year-old, because they bring us that stuff through other ways. They're an amazing cask strength product, and this Contrast series that people love. I put it to you that you love Benromach's 10 and you love their 15. You may spend the money on the 21-year-old and love that too. I guarantee you that 9.9 times out of 10, you would love it more at 46% ABV with no oils and fats removed. That's my suggestion. Yes, it would have an impact on price. There are caveats here. How much? Not that much. Really, not that much. It would have an impact on their profits potentially. How much? I don't know. It would impact other things. What about some other companies that have gone in a similar direction to Benromach? Tonight is focusing on not the companies that have been doing it all their time. That's what we talk about every week on the vPub, and I'm going to continue to do that. But the video that I put out recently is part of the Vault, the Whisky Vault. Daniel Whittington reaching out to the YouTube channels and saying, hey, do you want to put a video together and we'll share it as part of our dry week? So he's contacted dozens and dozens of YouTube channels, and dozens of YouTube channels are going to put content in. And you're going to see a deluge of content over at the Whisky Vault in the coming weeks. Fantastic. Super collaborative, super open, super kind of celebrating the community and the amount of diversity that there is out there in the whisky landscape inside the space of YouTube. I chose to review this whisky, the Jura Perspectives 01. I kind of wanted to put this on a platform, but I wanted to put it on a platform and say that, yeah, this is Jura, but it's not how you know Jura. This is a big step forward for Jura, and I also used it as a way to talk about what we're discussing tonight, natural whisky. But this is 46.5% ABV Jura, and look at those statements down there. Can you read that? Non-chill filtered, natural colour. We've never seen a thing like this. And widespread, large-scale, natural Jura that's stated as such. Because this is 100% hitting all the ABCDs. We've got an age statement of 16 years. Bottling strength of 46.5. Non-chill filtered, stated on the label. Dye, no colour. Added, stated on the label, natural colour. 65. I actually think I paid £70, £69 for this. I'm super chuffed at this, and I've been sharing the life out of this. I've been giving this to everyone who's ever said naughty things about Jura in the past and said, see, I love pouring it for blind and saying, what do you think? Tell me what you think. They say, this is good whiskey. I like this. What is this? This is Jura. No, it isn't. Yes, it is. It's wonderful. That's this. Suddenly we can celebrate a distillery that it's almost been amongst enthusiasts the butt of jokes. It is the single best selling single malt Scotch whisky in the UK because they put it out there at a very, very low aggressive price. And if they're going to put it out at a very low aggressive price, there isn't as much money for the best of casks, for natural presentation, for getting the colour into the whiskey, for getting the flavour and the depth into the whiskey, for they're going to filter it and put it out at lower ABVs. This is a different step, a different direction for Jura. It's not going to be my whiskey of the year for 2024. Unlikely. But it's going to be the best expression I've ever threw money at from Jura. And that is something to celebrate. There's another one here that I'm a wee bit on the fence about. And this is launching now. Somebody mentioned it in the chat a wee bit earlier, talking about Scapa. This is super interesting because the Scapas that we've been enjoying up till now have been 40% ABV. They've been 40% ABV going way back to the Scapa 14, and then it changed to the Scapa 16. People still loved it despite it being 40% ABV. People love Scapa. But then Glansa and the other one came out. What was the other one called? I forget. And they were forgettable. They were the flattest, most linear, most uneventful whiskies. And it was heartbreaking that that was how Scapa was choosing to represent itself. Scapa is the only Pernod Ricard distillery that is not in Speyside, but it's also one of the most celebrated enthusiast distilleries. When you get a good Scapa, it can really, really make you realize how fantastic malt whiskey can be. Unfortunately, that's pretty rare these days. The presentation on this is fantastic, 48% ABV. I was suspicious when I shared this with you a few weeks ago that this was chill filtered, despite the fact it's a 48% ABV. But I was given this from Rolfie, or Barfly, Rolf. It was launched in Norway first. He got a bottle and he gave it to me when it was already a chunk taken out of it. So it didn't come with the box. And apparently on the box, it did say that it was non-chill filtered. And indeed, on Whisky Base, it also tells us that it's non-chill filtered. However, why is it not on the label? Why is it not on the label? Why is that so difficult? I'm looking at the small writing here, and it just isn't. I've scanned that wee QR code on the back, and it just takes me to a generic web space. Nothing exciting about scanning it at all. However, this is a beautiful bottle of whiskey. This is very, very attractive. I know that with no whiskey in the bottle, you're not going to be able to see it properly tonight, but it's just terrific. You've got the boat there. You've got these wonderful waves on the shoulder. It's just a lovely thing. I can pour a tiny wee bit just to remind myself. I'm not loving this. I think it's missed the point a wee bit. It's a wee bit winey porty. It's a wee bit modern, a wee bit flat, a wee bit footered with, a little bit. A little bit. 16 years old. That's a bit of a heartbreak. That wee sip I've had there is probably about the best sip I've had from the bottle. It's not bad. It's a decent wee whiskey. But I just feel like there's something. And again, we don't know that this is natural coloured. There's just no statement about the colour intent on here whatsoever. I just feel like this is so exciting. I've still to try the 10-year-old. It's part of a 3 new revamped release. They've got the 16-year-old, a 10, and an older age statement as well. Still to try anything outside of this 16. I reserve judgment, and I'll also reserve judgment on this one until I've had time to actually sit and compare and contrast and consider. But yeah, it's just, I don't know. I don't know if it's wine cask, port cask. Don't know what the cask makeup is here. Something in here that's just holding me back a little bit. Something that's making me feel that it's a little bit, I don't want to, but yeah, contrived or engineered or fiddled with, or just tastes like a very modern made whiskey. I'm not sure. Alistair Gray is saying, tasted this last week, Roy. I was disappointed. It's interesting. Jimmy Legg is saying, you're coming off some Benromach. Tough act to follow. The vibrance and the spice and the uniqueness, Jimmy, absolutely right. And I'm probably not being fair to the Scapa. That said, it's probably one of the nicest wee sips I've had from it. Alistair saying it's a bit meh, to be honest. Exactly. I think we feel the same way, Alistair. And Doodle Dramarni saying, I would feel heartbroken if a customer said to something I make. Must be the same for the good, dedicated people who craft the whiskey before the gaffer fiddles it apart before bottling. I don't think it's the gaffer. I think it's the market, it's the demands, it's the agents, it's the distributors, it's the market feedback, it's the people in charge of the product development, it's the people in charge of the finances, it's all these forced things. And that's why we see these much more small companies being so raved about, because there's probably just a few individuals, impassioned, informed individuals in place making the product launch decisions, that it doesn't end up being designed by committee. David is saying, let's not forget chill filtering is actually an expensive process. To go from 43% instead of 46% may not be that financially motivated, maybe more due to a target audience requirement. David, in most bottling plants, chill filtration is a checkbox. It's not charged extra for. It goes through the same equipment. The question is just simply at what temperature. The price is quoted per litre, and chill filtration, in my understanding, is not quoted for. It's not charged for. Okay, let's see what you said, because I'm going to ask the same thing at the end of tonight. I asked everyone at the start, do you care about malt whisky being natural? 71% of you said, I certainly do. 23% said, I somewhat care, but I don't insist. But already, that's 94% saying that you care. Some of you are a wee bit more pragmatic, saying that you don't insist, but 23 against 71. And then 3% are saying I care a little, and then 3% are saying I really don't care at all. So, okay, that's exactly what I expected. So let's, I'm going to record that. I'm going to say 71, 23, 3, and 3. I'm going to ask you a different question now. And I think I'm going to do it in this order. And I appreciate that I'm leading you, you know, but just, let's just do it. Let's have a bit of fun. Let's make a statement. Colour in malt whisky I think we only need, no, we'll go for 4. I'm not going to read it out. I'll let you read it. Hopefully there's no there's a spelling mistake right there. Fix that. This will only take a second. I'm not the fastest typer. All right, there's a new poll, and it's specifically about colouring. I've asked you, colour in malt whisky, ... should be banned, should be declared, should be permitted for consistency, or is fine. I think we know what's going to be said here. I think we know what's going to come back. But I'm going to show 2 products from the same company, and I'm going to share them with you. And I'm going to share how brave a move this is on these 2 things. One of these is still my first bottle. This is my second bottle of this other one here now. And I picked this one up for very, very good price. Both of these are from Loch Lomond Group. And Loch Lomond have become a real zeitgeist distillery. One of these kind of growing reputation, constantly attracting more and more of our attention. They seem to be doing a fantastic job of keeping one foot in the mass market presented product and being able to cater for enthusiasts in very, very interesting ways. Quiet and subtle ways like the ones I'm going to share with you now, and really quite fabulous, exciting ways, such as their Loch Lomond Distillery Edition series, some of the special releases from Glen Scotia, some of the amazing single casks, and including the festival releases, but of course, core products such as Victoriana as well that's really captivated us. However, we always have a wee caveat with Loch Lomond Group, don't we? We always say, but they're still leaning on colour. Still far too much colour in there. The 12-year-old, whether it's the Inchmurrin, the original, the Inchmoan, the peated one, they're all coloured. A lot of the Glen Scotia, 15-year-old, double cask, coloured. The 2 I'm going to talk about tonight, the ones that I've just held up, are both unique in as much as they are the first mass market, fairly competitively, very competitively priced, actually, releases from Loch Lomond that are fully natural. This is Steam and Fire. It's obviously celebrating and leaning quite heavily on the fact that Loch Lomond have their own cooperage in-house. Engineered in line with our signature style, developed by our master blender Michael Henry, this whisky uses spirit from both our remarkable straight neck and more traditional swan neck stills. The freedom to explore and control our entire whisky making process, our spirit has started in American oak casks and finished in heavily charred casks, flamed by our own cooperage, giving a rich mouthfeel with notes of orange, pear, and melted brown sugar, with a dark chocolate soft smoke finish. I don't get any smoke in this. But look, there's a wee statement on the back here. Non-chill filtered. They, as far as I can find, they've not been brave enough to put natural colour on the label anywhere here. It may have been on the outer carton, the outer box, I don't know. But this is natural colour. There's no colour added. It's a non-age statement product. This is the colour of whiskey. This is the colour of whiskey from that cask makeup. Beautiful colour, gorgeous. Double cask, Glen Scotia double cask is coloured. Not this one. This one is the rum cask finish. This is a pale straw gold colour. This is almost the colour in real life. Is the camera might not show it, but this is kind of like maybe a light white wine. Much that there is richness to it. There's a gold with lots of yellow highlights in this. I think it's a beautiful colour. This is fully natural like Glen Scotia at mass market prices with no fanfare. This is fully natural Loch Lomond at fantastic prices with no fanfare. They are playing. They are trying this out. They're seeing what's the market reception going to be on these whiskies with this colour. We need to start talking about the companies that are doing this type of thing. Grapefruit. So Loch Lomond's always very citric to me. It's very, very citrusy. My brother and I, he was up about, let's say a year ago, let's say wintertime last year, or certainly earlier this year, and the two of us went to a local pub. Turns out that the landlord is a whiskey head, and in his bar he had a selection of Loch Lomond's, and the Steam and Fire was there, and it was on offer. It was the malt of the month. I had a bottle in the house, but it was there, and we were out, and I said, let's have a dram of it. The two of us sat there ordering a second dram. I think we may have even gone in and had a third. I don't know. Loving this. It was gorgeous whiskey. Now, given the selection that I've got on the shelves here, would Loch Lomond Steam and Fire be the thing that him and I reach for when we're sitting in this room together? Probably unlikely, but when we're out in a bar, which is where this animal lives, it was a fantastic find amongst all the other mass market, ubiquitous 40% nonsense, to find something on the shelf that was not only 46% ABV, but was fully natural. My second bottle, I think the first bottle I paid £45 for it. Second bottle, £34 of this Loch Lomond Steam and Fire. This is a sweet whiskey. The citrus element of Loch Lomond is there. There's a bit of vibrance and fizz. I think it masks its age very, very well, its youth very, very well. Given the price point of this whiskey, given the fact it's non-age statement, there's not going to be a lot of old stock in this, but there's depth and maturity with it. Nobody's picking this up and sipping it and saying, oh, it's young. It is sweet. It is what it is. It's very, very easy drinking. But there's a nice sparkle to it. There's a nice vibrance. There's a nice fizz. There's texture to it. There's depth. There's interest. There's a confidence that if you did want to put water in this, you wouldn't flatten it and drown it. Jeffrey Byers is saying, why shouldn't it be banned? He's talking about colour. Can't an industry that prides itself on tradition and steeped in pristine scenery embrace natural colour? Surely more natural products are better for everyone. I think it's absolutely the reason that colouring is permitted in malt whiskey, the reason that colouring is permitted in whiskey is purely because of the structure. The SWA, the way that it's self-funded, it's almost like an industry looking after itself. I understand that we can't use Paxarette anymore. We don't have access to those sherry casks, all of these things. But you can't talk about tradition, Jeffrey. You're absolutely spot on. You can't talk about purity and all the things that Scotch whisky markets itself with, and then allow this to be put in it. Now you can see we've started to, it's not quite up to the fill level yet here that it should be at. But you can see that when it was on its side, it's still completely jet black. This is caramel colorant. This is E150. Jim M is saying, I don't think you can properly evaluate a whiskey that has any added color. Just declaring it that it's there is not enough. Yeah, I'm going to get to this, Jim. If you declare it's there, that's one step. How much have you added? They're putting this in our bodies. They're making us consume this without our knowledge. We know that it's wrong because Germany insists on it. Forbstoff or Forbstaff, whatever that statement has to be, and the products that may contain caramel colorant that going into Germany has to have that statement. Everywhere else doesn't seem to care. I care. Make a dram decisions. I really like Glen Scotia double cast rum finish. Great bang for the buck. I agree. Sweet whiskey, delicious whiskey, natural whiskey. Jimmy Legg is saying, I need zero convincing about what Michael Henry's doing. I think we're absolutely converted on his talent at being able to cater for the balance. It must be very, very difficult for him. It must be difficult for him. But we know what Michael Henry loves, and I think that he wants to bring a lot more of that. Jeff Whiskey is saying, I fully get that colouring is a thing and why it's required for some brands, but surely the added ingredient should be declared clearly on the label. I'm going to go further, Jeff. How much has been added? Jimmy Legg is saying, but if he was here, I wouldn't have typed that. I can't let him know. He's talking about. So sometimes Michael Henry will be hanging out with us in the chat. Gavs Rams is saying, was the local pub the Gables? Hey, Gav, no. It was actually, it used to be called the Brackney, and now it's called the East End Fox. But the Gables is very close to me as well, Gav. Well done you for knowing my wee geography out here. Orange Will is saying, if we could declare that Scotch whisky is made of just 3 ingredients, then adding wheat absolutely is a 4th ingredient. It should be declared on UK bottlings. This is very, very obvious common sense, buddy, isn't it? I think, are we going to see you this weekend? I think we are, Will. I think I'm looking forward to it. Brian Stormont is saying, hope you're well, Roy. Oddly just poured a Glen Scotia double cask minutes before you did. A dram came back and again. Sometimes a real bargain or an offer. So, Brian, the one that most people would come across would be the PX matured. If I wasn't worried about knocking something over, I'd reach up for it there. I'll do it just to let you see. This is the Glen Scotia that is coloured. Now, it's from a PX cask, so a lot of this is the standard Glen Scotia double cask. You're going to get a lot of colour from those PX casks, okay? But if I hold it alongside the rum cask, I mean, just the contrast of those two colours together is just so appealing to me. It's gorgeous. However, I would love the PX cask to be naturally gorgeous, but it's still, as I understand it, it's still got some colour added. I don't want to beat up a product that I enjoy, but I guarantee you I would enjoy this more if it wasn't coloured for all the reasons that we're discussing. Let's say 2 things about the fact, can we taste it or not? If you were to put these in blue or black glasses and give them to me blind and say which one is coloured and which one isn't, I'm not confident that I would be able to pick it out. I'm not, and neither would you be, I'm sure. But we know over the course of our exploration, our accumulation, the things that we fall in love with, the things that really, really strike a chord with us, in the majority of cases tend to be natural whiskies. Just look at the cookie trail of whiskies that you collect on your collections, your selections, your shelves, whatever it may be, your libraries of whiskey experience. It betrays that natural is best. Ian Bruce is saying, I don't know why it's not covered under the food standards, which insists on ingredients being added to food and drinks, but not whiskey. This can be read on the relevant government site. It's common sense, buddy. I agree with you completely. However, I will be one of the most vocal to get behind Glen Scotia, to get behind Loch Lomond, if their core range, if their 15-year-old Glen Scotia, my goodness, their 12-year-old series of Loch Lomonds, if they were to start to go natural, if you think I shout about Loch Lomond positively now, I would get right behind it. So let's get to the crux of this evening. There's a couple of folk in here that I know want to hear about the whiskies that I have been keeping, that I have still boxed up, or one that's just picked up this week, wrapped in tissue. Two companies. One is Jura's. Jura's is responsible for Craigellachie, for Altmore, fantastic stuff, all natural. But they're also responsible for Aberfeldy, which has always been a delicate, beautifully honeyed, fantastically sweet caramel type whiskey malt, and always just, if only it was a higher ABV, almost everything from Aberfeldy has come out at 40% ABV in our market. The other producer is Ian MacLeod. So let's go with Ian MacLeod first. I went into Good Spirits Company, discussed exactly what I was going to talk about. Sorry about the tissue noise, I'll just throw it away. And Matthew at the Good Spirits Company said, "Ooh, have you tried this one yet?" I said, "No, I have not tried it yet." Ian MacLeod, responsible for Tamdhu, responsible for, well, other brands out there as well, including blends and blended malts and things, but also most famous, I would say, for Glengoyne. Famously the whiskey that's responsible for creating aquavitae, let's be honest. 10-year-old Glengoyne and a distillery visit back in 2005. 10-year-old Glengoyne, 40% ABV whiskey, still potent enough to make me fall in love with it. This is a different thing altogether. Almost everything from Glengoyne is 43% ABV and, some age statements. The Legacy series is an exception, but I want you to look at this white oak expression. Do you see this statement here? Non-chill filtered. And if we can find the ABV for you here, there you go, 48% ABV. Look at the colour of this Glengoyne. It's even a nudge paler than that naturally coloured pale white wine, Glen Scotia. This is gorgeous, gorgeous whiskey. This is objectively a beautiful, beautiful colour, unless you're still in that lane that thinks that all the flavour is going to come from a dark whiskey. Now, this is also going to be a very different take on Glengoyne. This is Glengoyne from American Oak. Let's read out what it says in the small print here. Let's test my eyesight here. North America, the summer home of the geese. Really? Gracing our glen every winter, inspired by this just... Okay, but it does go on to talk about white oak, bourbon, virgin oak cask maturation. So it's using white oak and virgin, so first fill, refill, and virgin oak. And it talks about creme brulee, candied lemon, and jam tart notes. Okay, fair enough. I'm more excited about the fact that underneath the bourbon and virgin oak casks, it tells us that it's not chill filtered. There are very few Glengoynes out there. Sure, Teapot Dram, the Legacy series. There have been other ones, but there are very few out there that focus on this style of presentation at the price point, somewhere in the neighbourhood of £50. Let's see what Glengoyne delivers when it's not been stripped. Can also put a shout out to Glengoyne that it's my understanding that absolutely nothing they produce has colouring added. So fair play to them for that. It says lemon on the label. You'd have got the lemon. Anybody would nose this and get lemon straight away. Sweet lemon, limoncello even. Lemon bonbons. Lovely white sherbet. You know, all of those candied, sugary lemon fruits. Sugary lemon confectionaries. Also a fondant, vanilla cream. Leans a little bit into pastry, but more in a kind of, yeah, creamy fondant. And a biscuity element. Grainy, crunchy. Malt. Yeah, kind of malty. But more a kind of biscuit, like a shortbread or a digestive biscuit type thing. But very appealing. Nothing sickly, nothing cloying. But all of the other things that we're used to nosing in Glengoyne, all of those kind of cooking spices, all of the dark chocolates, all of the rich dark fruits, the dried fruits, the cooked fruits. Not a lot of that here. This is a live, bright, fresh, vibrant on the nose. Even a wee bit of outdoor linen. So maybe a bit of floral on here too. Let's have a wee sip. It's a neck pour, remember. Oh yeah, beauty. The pricing from Glengoyne, the strategy from Glengoyne, the way they've gone with their core range, the way that Teapot, one of my favourite whiskies produced locally, certainly, has just been priced out of reach for me that I haven't bought it in years. To have something like this, to have what's just happened to me when I sipped that, to have, it feels like Glengoyne coming home. It's nothing like the profile. You would put this blind, serve it blind to anyone. There's no way they would pick it as Glengoyne. There's a mouthfeel here. You would think that you've been given a nice Thompson Brothers refill cask. You would think you've been given a creamy Altmore or Craigellachie or a... It's very lemony, it's sweet whiskey, but there's a lovely creamy viscosity, a lovely shape to the mouthfeel. And right at the heart of it, you've got this spike of life, of vibrance, of communicative. It's heat, but it's not chilly heat. It's not pepper, but it's giving that impression. It's giving that shape. It's giving that spark to things. It's given that interest. It becomes one of those whiskies that you don't just in kind of numb state just keep drinking. It's just the ABV. It's the way it's been presented. There's just more here. £50. No age statement, but fully natural, unchill filtered, decent strength, decent price, Glengoyne. I never expected that. This is a wee highlight for me tonight. I'm really, really chuffed. A lot of you know how close Glengoyne is to my heart as a distillery. It is legitimately the reason that I'm sitting in front of you here tonight, back in 2005. But I've been disconnected from it for years. Who would have thought that it would take a completely different tact to draw me back in? Thank you, Matthew, at the Good Spirits Company in Glasgow, for pointing it out. I was walking past it. Wow. Petehead is saying, to put white oak on the label is useless. Will never be red oak, as it is porous and will not hold liquid. I have to say that there's lots of things they could have called this, and white oak is as good as any. I think it's quite communicative in its statement for people like us who understand. So typically, when we talk about white oak, we're talking about Quercus alba, American white oak. Jimmy Legge is saying, migrating back home. Of course, he says, okay, the goose thing, the thing I was minimising that earlier, wasn't I? Fair play to you, Jimmy, you're right. Bringing the whiskey home, the geese migrating home. But Brian Cabalis is saying 48% and above Glengoyne has always hits the spot for me. Elegant whiskies. Good word, Brian. Gavs Rams is saying the best Glengoyne I have tasted was the limited edition M&S 14-year-old. That's interesting, Gav. That M&S 14-year-old was 40%. It was even lower ABV than the stuff they were putting out from the distillery, I believe. Here's another one. Before we get into a pretty easy, with a couple of crunchy questions, quiz at the end, here's one that did get a few of us quite excited. I've already mentioned Aberfeldy. I've had the Aberfeldy 10 on the shelf for a long time, the 15. I don't know if I've got any 15 now. I used to have the 21 on the shelf. Spent a lot of money, well, relatively speaking, back in the day for the 21. Always a little bit disappointed. Always felt like, this should be more. It was 40% ABV. But now I've got an Aberfeldy here. I should show you this box first. This is brand new. This is Aberfeldy's wine cask series. Look at that age statement up there. 15 years old, finished in red wine casks. I'm interested. The font is so small, I'm going to need to invest in a Ralphie magnifier. A red wine cask collection explores the malt master's art of finishing and the possibilities of flavour using the finest oak barrels from the world's most revered vineyards. Well, they wouldn't use the bang average ones that they could get a hold of from the bang average vineyards, right? Finished in Italian ex-wine casks from the Bulgari, DOC, so it's a designated origin, DOC, in Tuscany. This single malt is full of rich, dark, fruity aromas of cherries. I'll decide whatever flavours we're going to get. But what's amazing about this wee whiskey is the fact that it is 46% ABV. No guarantee that they're not chill filtering, but look at the statements they put on the label. I don't know if it's going to focus, but I'm going to ask it to. There you go, down the bottom there. Non-chill filtered, natural colour. Hallelujah. I am not aware of any kind of mass market. Listen, there's some fantastic Aberfeldies that come out, distillery exclusive and things like that. But I'm speaking about something that's been put out there to the wider market that's going to celebrate Aberfeldy without taking anything away and nothing added. No chill filtration, no dubious use of E150A colour. However, I do have to caveat this. It's a neck pour, of course, it's always a caveat. But I am also infamously reticent when it comes to red wine cask maturation, red wine cask finishing especially. I've had some crackers over the years, and I tend to find that when I fall in love with a Longrow Red, for example, it tends to be something that spent a lot of time in the wine for some bizarre reason. I often find this kind of fraction, this jarring fight between the core whiskey and the red wine cask. It's almost like a layer sitting on top of another layer. This fractured two sensations going on at the same time. However, I went out and bought a whiskey I would not normally go out and buy, a red wine cask series, purely because we've got a company taking a step in a different direction. And if this is successful and this has been received well, because this is the first time we're going to be able to taste Aberfeldy on a large-scale release with these specs. Now, if Douglas Lang's put out an Aberfeldy, if some of the other indies out there get a hold of a cask or whatever, you can taste Aberfeldy. It's not completely rare, but it's not common. Right, the first nose is all red wine cask. My goodness, both. It smells like fruit tea. It smells like berries, fruit of the forest, fruit tea. There's some pepper. There's some jam. There's some maltiness. Manuka. Some wood spice and sandalwood, cedarwood type notes. It's certainly communicative. I'm getting a lot, but I'm nervous about where all of that nose is coming from, how it's going to play on the palate. It does. It smells like fruit tea. Like you're sitting at night and you've made yourself a fruit tea, you've left the tea bag in, you pick up the fruit tea to sip it, and it's already tepid, and the tea bag is still in there. Still pleasant, but it's, you know what you're in for. You're in for this kind of quite tannic, fruity experience. Anyway, let's go. Let's caveat it with it being the fact that it's a neck pour. I'm not reviewing this. I'm just giving you my first impressions. Cheers, everyone. Let's start with the positives. Quite a big, bold, loud arrival. Treacle. It's literally treacle getting laid down on your palate. All the fruits, all the jams are all the kind of more dry, tart fruits. Damsons, raspberry, blackberry. Wow. Okay, this is a hook whiskey. Somebody's going to taste this and just fall in love with it. Very, very prominent fruits. Almost like a sun-dried, rich, dark fruit thing, like Amarone style grape. Drying, very drying on the finish. Fairly short finish. The sweetness is very, there's very kind of narrow bands of sweetness. If you don't like red wine cask maturation or red cask pinot, my goodness, blackcurrant, ribena, cordial, fruit cordial, blackcurrant. If you don't like red wine cask finishes or red wine cask maturation, avoid, because it's very prominent. I think it's I don't know what the finish is here. It's certainly a finish. We know it's not full maturation. But it's one of those whiskies that would make me say, 15-year-old Aberfeldy. What was so bad about that 15-year-old malt that you had to put it into red wine casks? I suspect nothing. I suspect that it would have been great malt. It was just ubiquitous in flavour and presentation, and you've chosen to give it a big blast of colour and flavour through the use of these, no doubt, high-quality Italian wine casks. I need to be pragmatic here. I drink whiskey regularly with friends who adore red wine cask maturation and finishes. Adore it. They love the hook, the spice. They love the big red blast of jammy flavour. They love the tannins. They love the oak, the dark chocolate, all the things that red wine cask play can bring. And this is bringing that. What we have here is a 15-year-old, fully natural, honest craft presentation Aberfeldy. The only thing I'm missing here is how much time it doesn't really matter how much we can taste what the wine cask has done. The biggest thing here is the price. It was £60, 65, maybe £60, I think. Now, for a whiskey that you're not going to enjoy, that's a lot of money to spend. But for a 15-year-old Southern Highland malt whiskey, fully natural presentation at that price point, there are few producers out there that's in that territory. Kilkerran, I can think of one with a 16-year-old. And then you run into trouble. Dalwhinnie's 15-year-old, maybe even a bit cheaper, 43% ABV. Speyburns 15-year-old, a cracker, but they're changing and going in the opposite direction. Hats off to Jures for doing this. Hats off to them for taking this step. I have a vision immediately of the people that I want to share this with who will love it. They will love it. It's flavorful, it's big, it's loud, and still quite restrained, if that makes sense. It's 15 years old, great specs, fantastic price, available. If you're into these, if you like port cask, if you like wine cask, if you like those types of fruity, jammy, this is very, very blackcurranty, almost like a Ribena cordial. If you like that style of whiskey, this is going to be a bargain for you, and you're going to love it. If that is something that you stay away from, regardless of what the bottle label specs are, this is another one to stay away from. It's very, very winey. Very little you can fault it on. It's not fractured. It's not separate. It's not layered. It's not jarring. It's even pretty well integrated. But know that those flavours are very prominent, very prominent. Graham Fraser saying, for me, Aberfeldy's keynote is honey, and wine finishes usually mask that. Well, I did get a wee bit of a musty honey. I think I said Manuka. But that waxy honey, Aberfeldy's famous for its honeyed note. That 21-year-old was one of the most honeyed whiskies I've ever enjoyed. So you're spot on, Graham. And I would say that this is, it doesn't obliterate it, but it doesn't enhance it. You're absolutely right. Pete Head is saying, I hear you talk like this aquavite. I'm starting to get worried about this Sunday's blind tasting. Frank, I wonder if that'll be the first time you've been in the blind tasting. The worst thing you can do about the blind tasting on Sunday is to worry about it. Graham Fraser saying, remember the old adage, Roy, never mix the grape and the grain. There's a lot of truth in that. There really is a lot of truth in it. But it does work. Come on, you know, sherry is okay, it's fortified, but sherry's derived from grapes. You know, so many of the things that we do enjoy about Scotch whisky that have been maturated in something that's come from fruit rather than grain. But it can be something that is hook. The big bold hook flavour is put ahead of the kind of the qualities of the malt. Alistair Gray's saying still hovering above buy it now. Buddy, I'll just send you a wee sample. I'll send you some up, or I'll get somebody to drop some off. It's better to say that, isn't it? Rather than post whiskey. I think there's going to be plenty of this around. I think it's a good price. I think not knowing your profile preferences better than I do makes me reticent about recommending it. But if you like wine, if you've got a track record with enjoying red wine, matured or finished whiskies, go right ahead. It's a bargain price. It's a fantastic presentation, and it's a whiskey that doesn't sit on top of another whiskey. It is quite well integrated. Caveats still notwithstanding, neck pour. And Harrow is saying, wine and port can be difficult, but done right, it's great. I agree, absolutely agree. And Greg in Paris is saying, that said, some French companies are top masters of wine cask matured or finished whiskies, but not many, in my humble opinion, Aquavitae. TWE starts to have some, but there is also the Lakes and Cavallan. Vino Brique, one of the most successful wine-matured whiskies globally, seems to be remarkably omnipresent in the Oswas, despite the fact that it's £200 plus a bottle. We are very, very, very similar, Roy, says Alistair Gray. Okay. I tell you what, buddy. Buy it. For a 15-year-old malt whiskey, earnestly presented as it is, I guarantee you, if we're very similar, it's unlikely to be like anything else that's on your shelf, and you'll have a fantastic blackcurrant forward contrast whiskey on your shelf. David Shaw is saying good morning from Perth, Western Australia. Out for a school run, but we'll catch up on the replay. Good morning. Straight back at you, David. Thank you very much for joining us tonight, and thank you for buying me a dram. I've also missed a dram from Jimmy Legg, I think, saying pale whiskey is the best whiskey. Easy, like E150A, wine and sherry have been ruining whiskey for years. Jimmy has a very, very, very specific view about whiskies. One of the biggest pleasures I've had with Jimmy Legg in the last couple of years is him being in Scotland and me kind of pushing things that he wouldn't normally go near. But I'm very, very, very gentle with it. I don't like to... Part of the pleasure of whiskey, one of the biggest things about whiskey is allowing people to have their preferences. Okay. Let's look at how you answered the thing about colouring. I asked you, colour and malt whiskey, ... There's 4 options, A, B, C, D. A, it should be banned. B, it should be declared. Or C, it should be permitted for consistency. Or colour and malt whiskey is fine. Okay, interestingly, colour and malt whiskey is fine, 0%. 255 people voted. Not one of them suggested that that is fine. Should be permitted for consistency. 1% allowed it that much. 62% of you were wrong, saying it should be declared. And 37% said it should be banned. Colour and malt whiskey should be banned. If you're putting out a blended product here, a blend into the world, and you need people to have the same reassurance with whiskey as they do with Coca-Cola, okay, I'm not going to agree with it, but I'll accept that it maybe needs some form of artificial, consistent control through colour for blends. Malt is like a fine product. It's a very specific product. It's all about the provenance of where it's from. A single malt, that single talks about the place it's from. It talks about how it's matured, what casks it's been matured in, how those casks have been married, if they've been married at all. It's all about the provenance, the provenance, the provenance. As soon as you make a blend from all of those provenances, then you're making something that's designed to be something else. But to go and to take one of those ingredients, one of those things of provenance, and to try and artificially adjust or crank or betray or deceive, because that's what you're doing when you use this. There is no excuse for putting colour in malt whisky. I used to be one that just went about saying it should be declared. We should tell people that it's coloured and we're adding colour. That is absolutely, we shouldn't even be discussing that. And you all agree with me. Literally 62% of you say the same thing. Less than 1% of you say that it should be permitted or it's fine. You do agree. But I'm going to go further. I'm going to go more militant on this. If we're talking about all the things that we sell malt whisky with, that provenance, that uniqueness, that sense of place, what? Sorry, you're doing what to it? You're adding colour to it. Why are you doing? You're adding colour to it because its casks are expensive. You're adding colour because dark whisky sells. You're adding colour because you can get away with it, because it's permitted. It should be, but there is no reasonable excuse to use colour in malt whisky other than business, profit, and laziness. If you tell people each batch of Scotch malt whisky will be a different colour because it's a natural product, that's education. It needs the whole industry to be moving in that direction to say, sorry, single malt is not a blend. A blend, if you want the same product every time, if you want it to taste the exact same, if you want the McDonald's of whiskey, go for a blend, pick up a blend. But if you want malt whiskey, it is not going to play that game. It is by design, it is intrinsically a batch-made product. We should be celebrating the fact that those batches are not the same. They don't want to be the same. To make them the same is very difficult. Therefore, we should celebrate their differences. Ban colouring in malt whisky. And I'm sorry if that sounds militant, but it's the thing that's endured with me more than anything else. I've been relaxed on age statements. I've relaxed on bottling strength. I'm even a wee bit relaxed because of the relationship between bottling strength and chill filtration. I've become a wee bit more relaxed on chill filtration. But dosing whiskey, malt whiskey with this, 37% of you agree with me. Ban. It is poison. It should not be anywhere near a natural product. And with that, I'll step off my soapbox. Greg's Whisky Guide is saying the Hale Springbank and its batch variations. That's right. All we need Springbank to do is celebrate its batch variation more by making its batch more easy to determine. If you buy Springbank on an auction site, or if you're buying Springbank online, you can't really tell from the majority of Springbanks, unless it's the 12 cask strength by ABV. You've got a bit of a clue. Even then, it's not guaranteed. You can't tell which batch it is. Wouldn't it be nice for them to celebrate the batch release nature of it a wee bit more? David Larenko is saying, even in blends, one may argue that you can blend your way into colour consistency. Big blends use hundreds of casks, so that's right, unless you've darkened that blend so much that it's really difficult to get there naturally, right? You're right, especially if we're working out how to use virgin oak a wee bit better and things to bring colour into whiskey from the wood, rather than relying on, there's lots of ways to do it, but also to educate your customer base that, is this one a wee bit lighter than the last time? It's malt. Do you want to try it first? We've got a bottle here we're pouring. I think you're going to find it just as delicious. It's so much about education. It really is. We're in it. We live in an era. We live in a time where that's possible. What about colouring and blended malt? Should that? No, Frank. No, it's malt whiskey. Stop. Don't bait me. Oh, we'll make a blended malt and we want it to be the same all the time and things like that. Okay. I've given you the concession for blends, right? I have. Malt is precious. The thing that makes it different here is the fact that it is a batch-made product. If you go into the blended segment, you're relying on a continuous product and you've got so much more control and definition over that, but you've also got the fact that you're making lots of it for very low price and getting you into all the markets that you need to be in. If you make a malt whiskey, it's sacrosanct. It's malt whiskey. You have defined that must be made in a very, very specific way. Every step of how you produce malt whiskey is defined to the nth degree, only to be allowed to just colour it to any specification you want at the end. It's folly. It's nonsensical. It's stupid. It's indefensible. And the arguments that's used to defend it are to protect business interests, masked as something else. Petehead is saying agree, was for clarification purposes. Thank you, buddy. Thank you. And Mel is saying totally agree with you. So let me type the questionnaire in again, and I'll ask you for your indulgence as I do the same thing, but I want to type it the same way as much as I can remember. Do you care about malt whiskey being natural? I certainly do. Was the first option. The second was I somewhat care, but don't insist. I also gave you the option to say, I care a little. And I also gave you the option to add, I don't really care. All right, I know there's less of you in than there were when we started. We're down at 265 watching now. There was much more than 300 of you in a wee bit earlier. I wonder how many of you are getting your sleep, your recharge in before the whisky weekend in Glasgow hotels. But I'd like you to answer again and just honestly think about these things about natural whiskey, about that less to do with that kind of amorphous, ambiguous kind of natural whiskey concept out there, and more the fact that what's actually happening is you're taking malt, which has been forced and defined to the nth degree to do very, very specific things, only to the point where it's fully mature, to take it and strip all of those things out it through a brutal chill filtration, and worse, dose it with this. As much of it as anybody likes. There is no control over how much of this needs to be put in whiskey, and no declaration at all. This thing that we have, and you can apply it to whatever the classification is where you are, or what whiskey makes, how whiskey is made wherever you live. But I'm speaking about Scotch whiskey, specifically Scotch malt whiskey, and I think it's not easy to defend. Kyle Taylor is saying, do you have a mechanical keyboard? I can hear it. Aye, I do. I bang away like a maniac, right? Sorry, Kyle. Gav is saying, hey, what about Irish pot still? Well, it's the same. I mean, Irish pot still is batch made. The only differentiator there to my mind is that Irish pot still, it's permitted to have non-malt in the mix, but it's still barley. And the way that that product is sold and told, there should be no colour near single pot still Irish either. And one of the biggest benefits of single pot still Irish is that mouthfeel, is that texture thing, is that different take on whiskey. So you really don't want to be chill filtering any of that out either. Keep the ABV up, keep the integrity intact. Brian Cabias is saying Roy's survey questions are like working towards his PhD in social studies in whiskey. No, there's none of that. This is I'm trying to keep it fun, Brian, with the passion. Because Dr. Bones is saying, fair play, you persuaded me. Plus, dosing is cack for the reputation of single malt as a fine craft product. Exactly, it really is. Containing chemical colour doesn't stand up against champagne, Bordeaux, etc., or anything. It's fakery. It is pure deceit, and arguments to suggest that it's otherwise are just wind and pish. It's nonsense, and it's business interests, and it's easiness, and it's to reuse casks and reuse casks and reuse casks. And the longer the industry can rely on this, the lazier and the cheaper and the worse they're going to be about all the other things. This should not be near malt whiskey. I would, in my more militant moods, I would say any whiskey that's got the word Scotch on it, but I understand the role that blends play. Malt whiskey, it's forced on people to make it in a batch way. It is implicit, it's intrinsic, it's part of the thing that it's going to not be the same each time. It's always interesting to try IB versions of OB coloured chill filtered whiskies from the same distilleries. I agree, Graham, and I know what your takeaway would be from that. By the way, Dr. Bones, if that's the first time I've welcomed you in, it's nice to have you here. And Greg's Whisky Guide is saying, I'll be curious how US whiskies seem not to have allowed E158 in bourbon, while Scots did in malts. I know. There's a reason that why Canadian whiskey hasn't really conquered the world, right? But Scotch whiskey has. But it's I worry how much of a lie it's been sold upon. Jimmy Legg has bought me a dram to say, I'd say the same thing about adding sherry and wine to whiskey from wet casks. Take everything you've said and trade out E150 for wine. Yeah, I think that there's a lot more reticence about that because of the effect that it can have. And it's not always an immediate thing. Over time, it can be really bad for the malt. So people filling wet casks I think we talk that up more than it's actually happening. I reserve the right to change my mind on that in the future. Graham Young is saying, sipping a lovely Glengoyne Chapter 1. That's one of the legacy with Claudette tonight, wishing all the Glasgow Whisky Festival attendees a beautiful Barflies experience. And I'm a bit jealous, says Graham Young. Graham, we'll raise a wee glass and we'll think about you, buddy. You're usually always here. You and Claudette. Cheers and thank you for your dram. And Jimmy Legg, thank you for yours too, my friend. We'll miss you and Angie as well. Cheers. Sorry to rant a wee bit. This is objectively a good wee whiskey, this Aberfeldy. It really is. It would be difficult, it's super fruit, super dark fruit, jammy forward. It'd be difficult for me to widely recommend, but people like Sevi would sip this and say, my pal Sevi would enjoy this whiskey. This is his type of thing. Maybe not enough weird funk in it, so it's maybe a bit too clean and elegant for him, but yeah. Colouring reminds me of MSG, pure fakery. I agree, George. And Graham Fraser is saying, my impression on E150 in Scotch is maybe it came from the big players in the past, like Distillers Company. Graham, there's absolutely no doubt. The SWA is look, it's business interests. When the story breaks that Scotch whisky is faked, it's not a good look. Thank goodness for the much more modern approach to things where people are all about provenance, all about quality, all about integrity, and all about, more than anything else, transparency. And Jimmy is saying, see Aquaviti, if Sebi would like it, it must be crap. No, I love Sevy's enthusiasm for the things that he loves. It's a joy to watch. Anyway, sorry for going on a wee bit too long. I said I wouldn't soapbox tonight, but I did a wee bit. But aye, it's the way I feel. Reserve my right to change my mind as I become more informed, of course. I think as we all should. But in the meantime, that's how I believe. We are getting there. Jura, fantastic. Glen Scotia, Loch Lomond, Benromach, even Scapa, Aberfeldy. These brands are moving in this direction. Speyburn are terrifying us right now. What are you doing? You can parade like Mortlach Speyburn. You're so close to being a Mortlach. 15 and 18-year-old, that weight, that heft that you have, 40% ABV. What a waste. An utter waste, and we will talk about that waste. Whisky with Molly Ben is saying, sorry I missed tonight. Don't worry, buddy. It's always there for you on the replay, but I suspect you'll be joining us over the weekend. Looking forward to it. And Jimmy is saying, no, Aquavite, this is fun. And Dan is saying DVDW, that is saying, good question, Greg. When did distilleries start chill filtering? I've got the answer for you, Dan. The first recorded entry of chill filtering experimentation is in 1933 by the predecessor of Diageo Distillers Company Limited. In 1933, they started to chill filter, but they were reticent to put it in place as a practice because of the impact that it had on texture and mouthfeel and flavour. And if anyone doubts me, I've literally got the Scotch whisky record entry for the same, 1933. When it became about profit, when it became about its ability to help them make money, they soon changed their minds. Alrighty, let's move into a very easy, with a few wee slippery, tricky banana skin questions in there, quiz at the end. Thank you for hanging out with me for tonight. I'm very glad to have been able to take a wee bit of time out with you. I'm super excited to join everyone in Glasgow tonight, but in the meantime, it's Thursday, and the best thing to do is to rock up with all of you guys, wherever you may be. Thanks for joining me live tonight, and thank you especially if you're picking this up on replay. Quiz at the end, remember, is always, always, always going to be multiple choice. Because of difficulties that we continue to have with the software, I'm having to run it in a slightly different way tonight, but hopefully you don't notice any difference and it works well for you. And what I'll try and do is bring the live chat over here in a hope that I don't miss too much. Change the windows about a wee bit so I can see things better. I can still see that you can see and hear me. All right, multiple choice. You're only playing against yourself. You can lean on the lounge, of course you can. And I suspect that, unfortunately, last week there was not many people managed a 10 out of 10, but this week it'll be a wee bit different. Question 1. Which of these has been a turntable blended Scotch whisky release? I'm going to give you 3 options, 3 potential music titles, and you have to tell me which of them have been a genuine turntable blended Scotch whisky release. A, Purple Haze, B, Firestarter, or C, Faster, Better, Harder, Stronger. Please take care. Now, I suspect a lot of you won't have been anywhere near turntable, but you'll have heard me talking about it in the vPub. You'll have perhaps picked it up in social media. For those of you that are completely distant from it, lean on the lounge. Stu Baby's in, good to see you. Andy Pears is here, coming to Glasgow this weekend. Whisky Total, good to see you, good to welcome you in here. Kyle Taylor. Nicholas, I mentioned you earlier, Kyle. Nice to see you, Nicholas. Ben Demon Hunter is here, Bruce Bernard is here, good to see you, Bruce. Your Uncle Vanya's here, fantastic. Both fantastic. She's saying, well, you're very, very smart here. Yes, there are 2 out of 3 here available tonight as correct answers. I can tell you that Purple Haze is correct. Firestarter is correct. Faster, better, harder, stronger. No, it's harder, better, faster, stronger. There was a banana skin there. You have to be careful of this. These often I'll give you 3 out of 3 for the first one so that nobody goes home in a donut, and always warn people to watch out for the banana skin. That's a horrible one to start with. But if you got this right, you're in good shape for the rest of the quiz tonight, I think. Second question, still a wee bit tricky. Which of these blends was not nominated in the 2024 Oswas? Was not nominated. A, Redbreast 15-year-old, B, Compass Box Orchard Outburst, or C, McNair's Lumbrick 12-year-old blended malt. We are looking for what was not nominated in the 2024 Oswas. Jimmy Legg is saying, oops. Did he catch that banana skin there? There's a big picture of it up. Tommy Simpson and the Loaded Dice. What a name. What? Good to have you in, Tommy. Dan is saying, as in, not A's not even a blend, question mark. Greg's Whiskey Guide is saying B is tricky. And Steve Gibson, a.k.a. Springer Ginger. First time I've welcomed you in as well, Steve. Good to have you, even though I can't really pronounce what you're saying there. Adrian Madrigal is here. Good to see you, Adrian. Too Slow Rob is here. Gene Kelly. Tom's Drams. Steve Atkis. I can tell you that the blend that was not nominated in the 2024 Oswas is because it doesn't exist. Compass Box Orchard Outburst. Orchard Outburst is a thing, but it's a Noble Rebel product from Loch Lomond Group. And Compass Box is, of course, Orchard House. Redbreast is, you absolutely spotted. Redbreast 15-year-old is not a blend, so is therefore not nominated. But McNair's Lumbrick was nominated. B. I did promise you things would get easier, and they will. They absolutely will. Question 3. Douglas Laing's Campbelltown Blended Malt is called what? All the rage. Campbelltown Blended Malt. A. It's called Campbelltown Loch. B. It's called Druket Dug. C. It's called the Galdrons. What's the name for Dougie Laing's remarkable regional malts Campbelltown release? Hopefully starting to get a wee bit easier for you now. My first pour tonight, says Kyle Taylor. Obviously, whatever he's answered, I would suggest is the right one then. I can tell you that Dougie Laing's Campbelltown Blended Malt is called the Galdrons. If you answered C, you're absolutely spot on. I do have some kicking around here, but it's a wee bit out of reach. There's the cast strength one. Yeah. This one's still not opened yet. I haven't had a reason or a vPub to pull this open yet. Galdrons from Dougie Laing, remarkable regional malts. Question 4. I am a distillery located in the Highlands. I'm the second best-selling malt for my owners after Aberfeldy. I sell my malt under 2 different brand names, neither of which include the name of me as a distillery. Who am I? I suspect you might need to wait for the answers to pop up to help you on this one. A, I am Glendullan. B, I am Macduff. Or C, I am Ardmore. Highland Distillery, second best-selling malt for the owners after Aberfeldy. Sell my malt under 2 different brand names, neither of which have the name of the distillery. Who am I? Good stuff. Tom, Whisky and Well Trails is here. Good to see you, Tom. I hope you're keeping well. Glen FC, Klaus is here. Good to see you. Mikey Hayes here. Fantastic. Good to see you, Mikey. Neil Harrower, that looks like a new name, Neil. Good to have you in. Make a Dram Decision, your Uncle Vanya, all going for B. You're absolutely spot on. The distillery is a Highland distillery. Glendullan is in Speyside. Ardmore is a Highland distillery, but it is Macduff that sell their product as the Deveron and as a travel retail exclusive Glendeveron. So if you answered B, well done. Let's move into a picture question at the end. There's a bunch of reprobates here. Some of the most fun people I've been able to meet in Whisky are pictured in this image. There's a lot more of them than this, but it just happened to be this bunch of reprobates that was standing in front of this distillery on this particular day. What is the distillery that we are standing in front of? We are standing in front of a Lagavulin on Islay, or we are standing in front of B, Jura, on the Isle of Jura, or we are standing in front of C, Arran and Loch Lomond on the Isle of Arran. Where are we? Jimmy Legacy, and I see a moose. You do see a moose. Your bottle of E150 could easily be mistaken for Dalmore. It's not quite that bad, David, but you're spot on. It's ridiculous. Is that Gregor on the far right? Aquaviti, says Jimmy Leg. That's Gregor McQuee. He's actually wearing my hat in that picture. I think he is. B by pure popularity. Warner, One Glass Man, you're absolutely spot on. Tom's Drams is saying B, obviously. Good to see you in, Tom. Good to have you here. Good to have you getting it right. This is Jura Distillery on the island of Jura. Please, if you go to Islay, try and make the time to go the extra wee journey over to Jura. I guarantee you it'll be worth it. Especially now they've started to move in a direction of more natural whiskey. Question 6, what has been announced in the last couple of weeks? I'm going to give you 3 facts. You have to tell me what is a legitimate fact that's been announced in the last couple of weeks. A new official 30-year-old from Isle of Arran's Loch Lomond distillery is about to be released. B, a rebranding for Bowmore is about to happen. Or C, another online whiskey awards initiative has been started. A new 30-year-old Arran is imminent, a rebranding for Bowmore is imminent, or another online Scotch whiskey initiative, an awards initiative, is underway. Jimmy Legg is right when he says Bowmore needs more than a rebranding. It needs a complete rethink. I would agree, Jimmy. Well done, everyone. Such knowledgeable folk. Some of you are thinking that it's all 3. Listen, a rebranding from Bowmore, there has been rumours, but nobody's shared or seen anything yet. Certainly nothing's been announced. A new official 30-year-old Arran during the Oz with Stuart Bowman, the Isle of Arran Loch Lomond distillery manager, came on and talked about 2025, their 30th year. They would be looking at a potential 30-year-old, but it's not been announced. The only thing that has been announced is the English Whisky Awards, another inspired by the online Scotch Whisky Awards, of course. That's live right now if you want to go and vote. englishwhiskeyawards.co.uk. I think that's the web address. I had it up earlier. I edited my votes tonight. It's looking for community support, and for these initiatives to succeed, it has to have community support. They can refine it as the years go by, they can change it, but in order to work out what they need to change, it needs the participation. So jump on board, give Jeff and Vin your support, and let's see that grow as well. Question 7. Oh, sorry, I had the web snap up for you to see it. I wish I'd taken the website as I did that. Question 7. Which Speyside distillery, it's getting tough now, which Speyside distillery did Alfred Bernard describe in the 1880s as a fairy's palace and an Eden, and that its pure spirit should be appreciated by mortals or all the world over? Bernard, one of the whiskey distilleries that knocked Alfred Bernard on his backside was A. Mortlach, B. Benromach, C. Glengoyne. If I could help you here, I suspect if you do not know anything about this, if you don't know what this is, if you have not read the Malt Whisky Yearbook 2025, if you're guessing, guess for the one that you think is least likely here. But he talked about this fairy palace, this Eden, and that it should be appreciated by mortals all the world over. Wonderful words. Thank you, Hillswood, for that. I'm just going to pin that, and then I can end that poll. It's gone even higher. I certainly do, has jumped from 71% to 83%. What a jump. Somewhat care but don't insist has dropped from 23 to 15. I've done a good job of convincing you all. And I care a little, or I don't really care, dropped from 3 in both cases to 1%. Not a bad wee effort, so we can end our poll there tonight, and I can leave you with the English Whisky Awards link. Okay, this is splitting you a little bit. Some of you are all over the place on this one, but the vast majority of you are saying either A or C. Only one of you can be right, and I can therefore tell you that he's not speaking about Dufton and Mortlach. He's not speaking about Benromach. He is actually talking about Glengoyne. Glengoyne is Bernard's fairy's palace, his Eden, and he believes a spirit that should be appreciated by mortals all the world over. Question 8. Which of these distilleries can lay claim to a sister malt distillery located in New Zealand? I'm going to give you 3 distilleries. One of them has a sister distillery in New Zealand. A. Pulteney in the Northern Highlands. B. Bushmills in Northern Ireland. Or C. Westland in the Northwest USA in the state of Washington. Which of those distilleries has a sister in New Zealand? A. Pulteney, B. Bushmills, or C. Westland? Don't we all have a sister in New Zealand? Says Jimmy Legg. Not that I'm aware of. Might be nice though. Greg is saying, oh, no idea really. I think when I tell you the answer to this, you'll spot it, Greg. Have a wee look towards Brian Cabayas, see what he's saying. What happened there? I can tell you that it is Inverhouse who recently purchased Cardrona. So it's nothing to do with Bushmills, it's nothing to do with Westland, and everything to do with Pulteney in the Highlands. Also Balblair, Knockdhu, Speyburn, Balmenoch. Yes, the sister distilleries, Pulteney in the Highlands to Cardrona in New Zealand. Second from last question. Which of these distilleries cannot be found in England? This is probably a trickier quiz than I thought, but a lot of you are hanging on. Graham Fraser, Brian Cabayas, Bruno Martins, Graham Young, Papa Q, Gene Kelly, all on 8 out of 8. But which of these distilleries cannot be found in England? A. Pocketful of Stones. B. Retribution Distilling Co. Or C. Copper Fox. Which of those distilleries cannot be found in England? A. Pocketful of Stones, B. Retribution Distilling Co., or C. Copper Fox. Trying to remember where that one actually is. So knowledgeable. So knowledgeable. Quite amazing. I thought I was going to be able to catch out with a banana skin there. Pocket Full of Stones is a legitimate English distillery. Retribution Distilling Co. is also, despite its name, a genuine English whiskey distillery. Copper Fox is not Cooper King or Copper Rivet in England. Copper Fox is in Virginia, USA. Copper Fox is the answer I was looking after. So if you said C, like so many of you did, well done as we move into the inevitable asshat at the end, designed to be deliberately awkward. How many official Flora and Fauna releases are currently available to buy? That is official releases that maintain the releases right now today. It's not legacy. It's not discontinued. How many official Flora and Fauna are available today? The exact same number as the number of A, operational Scotch malt distilleries beginning with the letter T. B, operational Scotch malt distilleries located on an island, but excluding the island of Islay. Or C, operational Scotch malt distilleries located in Fife. Which is it? Distilleries beginning with T, island distilleries that are not on Islay, or Fife distilleries. How many Flora and Fauna releases are there available today? I hope you all don't mind me having a slightly lazy vPub this evening. I have to say I've enjoyed hanging out with you. It's helped me get a wee bit of respite ahead of the crazy weekend that we have ahead of us, but I can't wait. I'm really looking forward to it. That said, it was nice to spend some time with a lot of the folk that might not be able to make all the festivities this weekend. Mikey Hayes thinks it's C, distilleries located in Fife. Well, Petehead thinks it's malt distilleries beginning with T. Yeah, this is horrible stuff. Bruce Bernard thinks it's B, operational distilleries located on an island that excludes Islay. I can tell you, okay, let's see if this helps you. I can tell you that operational Scotch malt distilleries beginning with T, number 11. Operational distilleries located on an island that does not include Islay is 15, and operational distilleries in Fife are currently 6. But I can tell you that there are 11 Flora and Fauna releases still available today. The only answer there was A. So if you answered A, give yourself the point and let me know if any of you have managed to bag a 10 out of 10 this evening. I suspect, despite there being quite a few lowball, easy, soft questions there, a lot of them were a wee bit tricky. I kind of apologise, but not really. Somebody pointed out to me recently that, Roy, don't ever make the quiz too hard, because it's one day I'm going to get a 10 out of 10 and it's going to be a weekend-long celebration when I do. I thought it was wonderful. So he wants it to be a challenge, and I kind of get that, I understand. Sugar Kitty, though, manages to nail a 10 out of 10. Fantastic. Congratulations to Sugar Kitty. Whiskey and Wine Charles Tom is Dancing Man with a 10. Warner, the One Glass Man, is also, oh my God, my first ever, with some help in question 5, he's admitting, but 10 out of 10. Celebrate it. Take it, Warner. It's yours. Graham Young is a 10 out of 10. Gene Kelly is a 10 out of 10. This is brilliant. Well done, Graham and Gene. Hellswood is on a 10 out of 10. Well done, Helen. Graham Fraser is on a 10. Super. Bruno Martin's on a 10. Brian Cabayas is on a 10. Wonderful. I thought that it was going to catch out far too many of you, but you did very, very well. And Dan is saying, Aquavidi, I have a feeling the 11 Flora and Fauna distilleries are quite often an answer in the last couple of months. I'm trying to help you. I'm trying to make it a wee bit easy. Tom's Drama is saying 8 from 10. Not bad for me. Thanks, Roy. It's a cracking score, Tom. Celebrate it, buddy, and see you over the weekend. Am I going to bump into you, Tom? You need to come up and say hello. Justin Wan is saying a few of us got kicked out of the pot still. I won't say who. And back here I am, says Justin Wan. Listen, there is so much fun to be had over the weekend. The trick and the balance is keeping a lid on it and keeping the energy high so that you wake up in the morning feeling energized and powerful. It's a tricky thing to do, but it's possible. It is possible. Listen, I'm looking forward to the weekend. Hopefully next week I might be able to share some wonderful tales, and it might go and fortify our community and make us realize how special a thing this is that we have. It would be wonderful if we could see more producers moving in the direction of some of the ones I've shared with you tonight. I think we should celebrate them. I think they should be in the centre of our focus for when we're buying whiskey. The producers that are taking those steps to do it right, it should be the things that we're talking about and sharing. And to say I don't really care is just sometimes we leave ourselves wide open to being played for business strategies rather than the long-term health and quality and best interests of Scotch malt whiskey. And in truth, whatever the whiskey is where you are. Looking forward to hanging out with you all in Scotland over the course of the weekend. Jimmy Liggs bought us a wee dram to say, great fun, Roy. Love these solo sessions so much. Great chat. Jimmy, thank you for that. It means a lot, my friend. I enjoy it too. Sometimes I feel that it's a wee bit too self-indulgent. For those of you that I can't welcome in Glasgow this weekend, I very much look forward to welcoming you back here a week from now, and hopefully we've got some tales to share. Graham Fraser, thank you for supporting me as a barfly for the last 55 months, saying hope to see barflies in the pot still Friday PM. Let's raise a glass to all of the festivities over the weekend, and that you, wherever you are and whatever you're doing, have something lovely in the glass and a nice place to sit and enjoy it. And I look forward to having you back here next week. Until then, I'll remind you all that you're very dearly loved. Sláinte.